Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Bargas. I have a functional cardiology program in Oklahoma City. I do aggressive primary and secondary prevention for cardiovascular disease. I also have a Precision Peptide Program focusing on responsibly sourced peptide therapy for people who are interested in that. And today, our conversation will be focusing mainly on my Precision Peptide Program. Peptides are really just mini proteins. They're just small proteins. When our body makes a protein, it's done by stringing a series of amino acids together. If it's a certain number of amino acids or more, and that number varies depending on the literature you're referencing, but roughly 40 amino acids. If it's more than that, it's a protein. If it's less than that, it's a peptide. We've been using peptides therapeutically for decades. Insulin was the first peptide we ever used therapeutically. And now we, of course, have many peptides in the longevity space and alternative medicine and integrative medicine spaces where there's over 100 peptides that we're currently using therapeutically. So sourcing of peptides definitely matters, and it's very important right now. While there are several regulatory issues that makes it a little bit difficult to get all the peptides that somebody may want to use for various purposes. They're not all available from pharmacies, and most all of them, except for the GLP-1 agonists, have never been vetted through the whole FDA process. And so sometimes we have to source peptides from compounding pharmacies or even biotech companies. And so you can run into not getting safe or clean peptides. And to be clear, safety is really the big issue because we don't have large-scale randomized FDA-vetted trials of most peptides in use. And so the safety of all peptides, again, besides the GLP-1 agonists, remains in question. And we'll probably never have those trials, quite frankly. The process of making a peptide is actually pretty dirty. It requires different detergents and sometimes solvents because these are made in the lab. Some peptides we use actually come from non-humans, and we hope to get the same biological action in humans that it does in whatever the primary animal source is. But at the end of the day, even the peptides that we use that are chemicals made in our own bodies, the peptides we inject are actually made in a lab. They're never harvested from a human or any other animal. So it's just a molecule that's made in a lab, and that process can be dirty. There's a lot of international sourcing of peptides right now, mostly on the internet and these ads that you see on TV. These peptides come from manufacturing labs outside the US. And so the added level of safety risk is that those labs have no FDA oversight or any sort of domestic regulatory standards that they have to live up to. And so there's a specific compound, as an example, called TCA, which is a detergent used in the peptide. And TCA is incredibly toxic to humans. And there's been analyses on some internationally sourced peptides that actually showed higher levels of TCA in the vial than the actual peptide that the purchaser thinks they're injecting. And so you really want to make sure that you get them from a responsible source, and really only a provider who's certified in peptide therapy and kind of understands all of these details knows how to responsibly source the peptide. There's also been some reports that the peptide in the vial wasn't even the peptide on the label or the one that somebody thought they were injecting. There was a case report where somebody was experiencing symptoms that shouldn't really go along with the peptide they thought they were taking. To be specific, they were getting tan and thought they were using BPC 157, which does not make you tan, but a peptide called Melanotan II does increase the rate of tanning when in the sun. And when they analyzed the peptide in the vial, it was actually Melanotan II, and they thought they had been taking BPC 157. And so it's a significant safety concern. And so sourcing is very important. And who prescribes it, mainly the provider, is also important. You shouldn't ever just buy peptides online if you don't know anything about peptide therapy. That is pretty risky, and you want to use a provider who's actually been certified in peptide medicine, which is somewhat rare, as none of us learn anything about it in medical school or in our postgraduate training. If we desire to become a specialist in peptide therapy, we have to go source our own education outside of our standard medical education system. The sourcing for the peptide is very important. The person who is sourcing it, or the prescriber, is very important. Not all peptides are created equal, and not all prescribers are created equal. And just because you have a medical license doesn't mean you know anything about peptides. It's also important to know that influencers on social media basically know nothing about peptide therapy. And I get so many people in my practice that they watch some Instagram video of some, super buff woman that looks 20 years younger than her biological age. And she's like, oh, I'm taking, this laundry list of 10 different peptides, and they want to suddenly start all 10 of these peptides. Influencers know nothing about peptide therapy. They don't know about the safety of peptides. They're not certified in peptides. They're not even prescribers. And so people just need to be wary of that. And, it's not that you can't watch these videos and desire to have the same effect that that person has, but, you have to be realistic about what is actually able to be accomplished in your own body system, and know that what you hear on the internet is not necessarily gospel about peptides. I could probably find a peptide to bring some benefit to most any person who walks through my door wanting peptides. It might not be the peptide that they specifically have in mind, but overall, as long as you're getting a clean, responsibly sourced peptide, they're believed to be relatively safe, understanding, again, they haven't really went through the entire FDA vetting process. And so the FDA and the pharmaceutical industry would say they're not safe. Overall, those of us who engage in peptide therapy believe them to be relatively safe. There are so many different peptides for so many different physiologic processes that somebody's bound to be able to benefit from, improved mitochondrial function, or decreased oxidative stress and inflammation, or tissue growth. I think the biggest concern for me is active malignancy. And so they're really the patients that I take great pause with. If you're actively battling cancer, it really greatly diminishes the number of peptides that I'm willing to prescribe to you, because a lot of peptides promote cellular growth and tissue growth in general, and recovery. And the peptide doesn't necessarily discriminate between a healthy cell and a non-healthy cell. You should know if you have cancer. And of course, we're limited on that front. Be careful engaging in peptide therapy if you actively have colon cancer, prostate cancer, melanoma, that sort of thing. Peptides maybe aren't the best idea until you're considered cancer-free. My patients will call and be like, I want to know what peptide Dr. Bargas thinks I should use. And that there's seriously hundreds of peptides. And so you have to have some sort of idea in mind. Well, what is your goal for peptide therapy? Do you want to lose weight? Do you want to build muscle? Do you want to have more energy? Do you want to live longer? Like, why are you interested in engaging in peptides? You should educate yourself a little bit and have some sort of idea. I think people also need to understand that the terrain in which you're putting the peptide is very important. Peptides work best when they are put into an environment that is optimized, one in which we're eating clean, we're getting enough vegetables, we're getting good exercise, we're sleeping, we're, limiting stress, we're not toxic. I had a patient want me to prescribe peptides to help him recover from mold toxicity. Well, that's just not even a thing. Peptides aren't going to eliminate mold in your system. And in fact, if you have mold toxicity, you're going to be wasting your resources to engage in peptide therapy because they're not going to work at all in a toxic environment. And so you really want to clean up the terrain before you invest in peptides, because a lot of them are an investment and you want to know that you're getting the most benefit from the peptides. I'd say not only physician oversight, but a peptide-certified practitioner should be sought out if you're really serious about engaging in peptide therapy and want to do it in the safest manner. Peptides actually are prescription medications. They classically need to be obtained through a pharmacy, and the only way to obtain them without a physician prescription is to get them on the gray or black market, either off the internet or through some source that's not actually legitimate. You don't go on the internet and try to black market your atorvastatin to decrease your cholesterol. So you shouldn't do it with your peptides either. We discuss your overall goals. As I mentioned, I like people to come to me with some sort of goals in mind of what they want to accomplish with peptides. We'll discuss your history of peptide use. Have you dabbled in them previously? What's worked? What hasn't worked? Have you had any side effects I need to know about? We'll discuss your medical history. Namely, I want to know if you've had cancer, if you have cancer, if you have a strong family history of cancer. Once we establish goals, we come up with what peptides may be used to achieve those goals, and then outline a plan of care. What are we going to start first? What are we going to add in later? And just kind of have a layout of what it looks like over the next year or so on their peptide journey. So my Precision Peptide Program is a peptide-certified, physician-guided approach to peptide therapy with utilization of responsibly sourced, clean peptides. In a single sentence, you get me, you get my expertise, and you get the confidence and peace of mind of knowing that I know what peptide is good for you and what potentially isn't good for you, and the peptide that I will obtain for you is not loaded with toxins, pesticides, heavy metals, etc., and that the peptide is the peptide I say it is.